Hi, this is Regina Favors with Overcoming Setback Inspiration. And so I wanted to talk to you about the end of a thing. And so I want to read Ecclesiastes 7:8. And better is the end of a thing than the beginning thereof. And the patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. And what I want you to take from this particular inspiration is that we oftentimes are preoccupied with the current status of something, which we should be in some ways. But you have to look at the end of a matter versus the very start of a matter, right? Because when you start, you do not always start well. You do not always plan well. You do not always prepare well. You skip steps. You are hasty in your decision making. Sometimes you quit. Sometimes you return to it. But if you can get the vision in mind of completing the thing that you have set out to do, then I believe that will help you to stay focused, stay on track, set boundaries with family and friends and other opportunities, right? And get to the end of it, right? That as you grow up, you have your individual development, you have your social development, you have your cultural development, your racial development, your political development. And then there are other areas of your life, like, financial development, workforce development, etc. And we often sort of struggle at the very beginning because we think things are not going fast enough, right? We think as soon as we get a job, we should immediately be the supervisor of everybody else, even though we don't know anyone around us. We get money and immediately we think we should buy the biggest house, the car, and all of the trappings of having money, being rich, or being wealthy. But we oftentimes allow that to sort of get in the way of the things that we need to actually accomplish in life. And that there is a purpose on this earth for you. You're not here just to exist and live for the day and get by on the very little that you have. There is much more of a purpose for you on this earth and using your gifts and talents. And so I want you to think about the end of a thing, the end of yourself. What do you look like? That's why you often have people ask, what is your 5-year plan? What is your 10-year plan? How do you see yourself beyond where you are? And a lot of times when people are asked that question, they really do not know how to answer it, because I think that we often live in survivor mode and not overcomer mode. And that as long as we are surviving, we have the money to take care of ourselves, we have a place to live, we have a job, we have family, we're set, right? But I don't think I don't think the purpose of living is for you to live off just enough. I'm not saying everyone has to be rich, but I don't think you're supposed to cross your fingers and wonder if you're going to be able to pay your rent for the next month, or to pay all of your other utilities or something like that. And I'm not talking about exceptions to the rule where you have lost your job, where you are in sort of like a national global health crisis issue like the current pandemic, or if we were back in the recession or something like that. Those are exceptions to the rule. But when you are asked a question like, where do you see yourself, and you can't answer that question, that lets you know you haven't done enough reflection and you haven't done enough research into what it is that you want to do. Because usually if there's a thing you want to do, say you want to become anything, engineer or something like that, well, you definitely have the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the U.S. Department of Labor websites, where you can find information about how to become one. You got colleges and universities and academic advisors where you can go and visit those institutions and get some sort of advice or guidance on how to become that. And then once you are exposed to that, then you can look at what the trajectory of that particular career as well as industry, what it actually requires. Do you want to get your bachelor's, your master's, your PhD in it? Do you want to do books, write books or give conferences, right? And so the end of a thing is better than its beginning. You want to always start something, but don't get so preoccupied with how you start. I think a lot of times people who jump from romantic relationship to romantic relationship, I think the reason why they do that is because they want the newness of a relationship. They want to be able to feel the feeling that comes with being in relationship with someone for the very first time, but they don't have the patience to stick it out when there are twists and turns, and they become sort of proud in their spirit. And so then instead of sticking with that one relationship, they will get out of that, exit that one, and jump into another one, because they know that they are successful in the feeling of newness. They know that they can navigate that, but they do not know how to navigate the feelings of conflict and how to resolve conflict and how to take into consideration someone else's views and how to express their own views. Some people have been silenced from the time they were children, that even if they are grown now and can take care of themselves and they are 100% responsible for themselves, they still feel like that they are that same little child who wanted to express himself or herself and couldn't. And so sometimes they struggle in these romantic relationships thinking that their voice is not heard, and then they confirm that by not telling the whole story of something, and then which results in them leaving and confirming to themselves, well, see, I knew she didn't love me. I knew she wasn't listening to me. But it's not always the case. Sometimes it is the case that you don't know how to deal with the middle, that you can deal with the beginning. And people love to get to the end and say, I finished. But just because you cross the finish line doesn't necessarily mean you are complete. And so I want you to think about the end of the thing, what it is that you want to look like, what it is that you want to do, what it is that you want to reflect, represent. If you are an advocate of the homeless, or you are an advocate of people who have been imprisoned unjustly, and your role is to be advocate, the preferred advocate for people who are struggling in prison or with homelessness or something like that, that is the end of a thing. And the end of a thing is oftentimes thriving as well. There have been many people who have died, who have done very well as contributing members of society or to the American fabric, but they have died broke. And that's something that I wouldn't want for myself. I don't have to die with riches and wealth, but I do have to die with influence and legacy and some money to give via scholarships or philanthropy, interest, or just something that leaves something behind, that the legacy. So better is the end of a thing than the beginning thereof, and the patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. So when we say patience, we mean process. Anytime you see patience, you mean process. And that if you are proud, it is usually because you have gotten out of the middle of that process and saying to yourself, I don't need that process, and I'm just going to go on ahead and go forward. And as I have noted in other audios, that the lesson that you refuse to learn in one process is down the road. It has a different face, or it may have the very same face, but regardless, it is down the road and you are going to have to learn it. So overcoming setback inspiration, better is the end of a thing than the beginning thereof, and the patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. Thank you very much for listening to this audio.